Good afternoon and welcome everybody. I'm your host for today. I'm Paul Stannard, Chairman at Portugal Pathways, and we have an excellent panel for you today who have a wealth of knowledge and experience of the real estate market in Portugal and very much how the luxury end at the moment is outperforming the market, not just in Portugal but internationally, but the whole of Portugal's real estate market, according to this new report out last week, is doing much better than the EU and North America at the moment in terms of price growth. We'll also be discussing the differences between the different regional marketplaces in Portugal, from Porto and Braga in the north to Lisbon and surrounding areas, the Silver Coast, and of course the Algarve. And we'll discuss those trends and what's going on in that marketplace. But before we proceed, I would like to remind everyone that's watching today's webinar that it is being recorded. So if you can't hang on for the full hour, you will be able to watch it back. And any questions that we don't get answered today, we will come back to everybody if you put a message in the chat. So please use the chat section. And we'll also be sharing with you some of the high-level findings from this independent report from Property Market Index on Portugal and how it compares. So joining us today, we have Anne Brightman, who is CEO and founder at the Brightman Group, a boutique real estate agency with offices in Lisbon and the Algarve, and that specialises in all aspects of the high-end residential and commercial real estate in Portugal. We're delighted to have Anne with us again today. On top of that, we have Mario Ciola, who is the CEO and founder at Living O Porto. Mario was born and raised in Porto and has decades of experience at leading teams diverse teams in real estate projects, and knows the Porto market inside out, having worked in the real estate space there for over a decade. Sorry, apologies, somebody's ringing my phone. Schoolboy error, turn that off. We also have, alongside Mario and Anne, we have Bart van Linden, who is the managing director of Algarve, exclusive Algarve Villas, who also has decades of experience within the luxury real estate market in the Algarve region, and has led a team there since 2006 with offices in Vilamora, Carveiro, and Lagos. And then finally, we have João Fonseca, who is the real estate developer and founder at Green Jacket Partners. He has decades of experience as a real estate developer, overseeing assets exceeding 350 million euros, focusing on luxury developments in Portugal. And he has been at the very forefront of projects like One Green Way on the prestigious Quinta do Lago estate in the Algarve. So let's get started. What I'd like to do is, first of all, just talk about these findings from this report from Property Market Index. And I just wanted to share with you some of the high-level findings. We've worked with Property Market Index for the last 2 years, and they do an annual report on different international markets. And once a year, they do one on Portugal. And what we've seen, not just in the overall market in Portugal, but specifically the higher end, luxury end of the market is outperforming the rest of the market. But in international markets, we are seeing, a small decline in North America and the EU and the UK so far in 2024. So they've seen a slight decrease in property prices, but the luxury end of the market is, performing not as well as it did last year, but still strong compared with other international markets, as you can see from this slide. The average, the most average market is still growing this year compared with other markets. And that's off the back of, Steve, if you could share the next slide. That's off the back of a 12.8% increase last year, with other markets like the Algarve last year had an average of 15% growth on property prices, and against the backdrop of this 1.7% decline in the EU market. And this year, again, a healthy growth forecast of 5.8% in the overall market, luxury market end of Portugal. So I'd just like to ask the panel just to give us an insight into, these are obviously stats by an independent report, but it'd be good to hear from the panel who are on the ground and what they're seeing in the Portuguese market. Perhaps we could start with you, Anne. You're on mute at the moment, Anne. I'll come back to you, Anne, when you've got your mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Sorry for the technical problems.
That's all right.
So I'm Anne Brightman with the Brightman Group Real Estate, and I would like to thank you, Paul, and Portugal Pathways for inviting me back to join in this panel. And to answer your question, what statistics are showing is that Portugal really continues to trend for overseas and private and institutional investors. Property prices all around Portugal are still going up, and the outlook is pretty optimistic, with the general consensus being that with interest rates continuing to come down, cheaper capital becomes more available for the investors. And there's been about a 50% drop in new development supply since 2007, 2008. And this, of course, has really increased the cost of housing. For overseas investors, I think Portugal's bank financing is still very cheap compared to other markets, and buyers can get a 30-year mortgage loan with an average spread of 1 to 2%, in comparison, for example, to the UK or US, where it could be probably closer to 3 to 5%. What's really interesting is that in Portugal, a developer, especially in the luxury segment, can get up to 60% credit leverage on property values. The capex rates on financing are very competitive compared to other EU countries, and the developer doesn't have to provide a guarantee against those down payments. Housing prices are going up consistently over the last few years, with the exception of the last quarter of 23. And this is because of demand, mostly from the international market and cheap financing. But there's been a slowdown in volume, basically the last quarter of 23, although the data from the first quarter of 24 shows as much as a 20% increase in sales volume. So prices are still holding pretty strong. Also, there's been an increase in prices and mortgage applications, especially in the upper market segments, with Americans being the number 2 buyers in Lisbon. That's next to the Portuguese buyers, and the number 1 buyers in the Algarve. So I would say, based on all of this information, the Portugal Pathways report is right on target, and I agree with the conclusion that the market is healthy and robust.
Thank you, Anne. Mario, do you want to talk about, obviously you're doing a lot in the north and Porto in particular. What are you seeing in your market?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation, Paul, to be in this panel, and to Portugal Pathways. Hello to everybody who is assisting. I'm Mario Coelho from Porto. I was born in Porto, and I'm the CEO of Living of Porto. Well, after this presentation of both the report and the end presentation, I can just add regarding Porto that we really have seen during last years and during last year as well, the trend of the growing of the volume and the value of the properties transaction, and the numbers are around 7%. The price go up during the last year, and we can estimate that this trend will keep going on because we have a gap between the demand and the supply. So Porto is now in the spotlight of the international interest for investors and also for people that wants to come and live here. So I think that this trend will keep going in the next years. That's my.
Thank you, Mario. Bart, would you like to comment what you're seeing in the Algarve?
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. My name is Bart from Exclusive Algarve Villas. We've got 3 offices in the Algarve, and we've been working for about 2 decades now. Yeah, we've seen basically the same in the Algarve. Pretty much prices going up. I think a general comment from also the rest of the panel is the low inventory, the low amount of stock available. And I think that's one of the problems Portugal has at the moment. We've got, of course, higher building costs. Land prices have also gone up quite a bit the last 4 years. And what we're lacking is basically new build properties. I think it's not just in the Algarve, but in the whole of Portugal. And what we've seen in the last, say, 12 months with what's happening in the north of Europe, instability, political changes, the Ukraine situation, is people moving from the north of Europe to the south for various reasons. We've seen also more clients, younger people in the late 30s, early 40s, who will come here on a permanent or semi-permanent basis. So yeah, I agree with the remaining findings of the panel that the prices have stabilized for now in Q1. There is a little bit less demand. I think last year what happened with the NHR, the Golden Visa, and Alojamento Local, the changes, for us, it caused definitely a bit of instability, and people have also been waiting for the elections. That's all passed, and yeah, we see things moving again.
And João, from your perspective as a developer, what are you seeing, or what's your insight?
Listen, we are super excited with the market. I would say that the numbers, they do not reflect the full reality of what's going on in Portugal. So Portugal, it's still affordable luxury. Although prices are rising a bit, they are rising just because the segment and the quality that is being delivered, it's different from last year, it's different from 3 years ago. Portugal became a road-tested destination for the wealthy families in Europe. Therefore, we can afford ourselves to build better quality real estate, competing to the well-known destinations in Europe, be it Marbella, Sardinia, Terre Blanche in France. And that's why you see prices going up, but still very much competitive towards what you see in the rest of Europe. On top of that, connectivity. I think that the Algarve, it's very well served. You're less than 3 hours away from all major capital cities, which makes this a unique destination for those that want to establish their families here and still run their businesses abroad. So we are quite excited. It gives us enormous opportunities to build better real estate and still be super competitive in pricing.
Very good. And I think we're also seeing, it's moved away from people having sort of just villa style, holiday related homes to much more discerning customers and much more discerning developers that are building more holistic homes rather than holiday homes. Is that something you're seeing more commonly?
So listen, you build whatever the market is ready to absorb, right? And so in the past, the Algarve was very much a holiday destination. So you have to build small houses for short-term usage. Today, we are building houses for families that are here permanently. When I moved to the Algarve, my kids, they go to the international school. It was 1 class of 11 per age group. In 2 years' time, it became 2 classes of 22 per age group. That's how fast the community is growing. It's a truly international community. Only 3% of residents in Quinta do Lago are Portuguese. So you don't feel as a foreigner because actually no one is from here. you have more direct flights from the Algarve to the UK than you have from Lisbon, the capital city. So this has some strong ties to the UK and Ireland. And again, I think that people realize that the place that they live has more to do with the quality of life and the values that they want to convey to their families, rather to any other funky schemes of tax benefits or this or that. Listen, it's improving. It's for me in Europe one of the best places to live. I would not exchange Portugal for any other destination in Europe, and that's what we have been getting from our clientele. They move from Marbella, they move from London, they move from Paris, and the moment they arrive to the Algarve, they realize that this is not only sun, fado, and sardines. There is much more to do in the Algarve, and the international community brings a lot of value to it. Be it the network, be it the people with whom you're going to make friendship, the quality of the schools and the hospitals that you have here. It's becoming a very road-tested and established destination.
Thank you, João. So I'd just like to move to the next slide, which just highlights what the report was showing in terms of some of the hotspot areas of Portugal and some of the destinations and where they fared. But I think the overall report showed there are at least 25 property hotspots in and around these locations, some of which, you know, we've already discussed. And I think the shortage of enough stock is one reason, but also we're seeing, you know, I mean, Portugal has the World Cup coming in 2030. It has more infrastructure being added. The new airport was finally announced last week. There's a lot of positive things going on around Portugal, and there's a lot of things going around in the northern part of Europe where people are wanting to move south to Portugal, but we're seeing the same in America, Canada, South Africa, other parts of Europe and Asia. So I think it is becoming much more multicultural, and I think it is bringing a lot of new people, and that shows in the hotspots. But what I'd like to do now is maybe move really just to talk about some of those different areas. And perhaps we could start with Mario talking about Porto specifically, because obviously it is the major city in the north. Obviously, you've got Braga and Guimarães and other areas, but Porto is the centerpiece of the north. Mario, could we have your insight? You know, what's going on in that region and what you're seeing?
Yes, Porto. Yes, I noticed that Porto has an increase, a brutal increase since last year. It becomes with the tourism, and then now we are in a stage that we have companies that are relocating to Porto. We have international students coming to Porto. We have the nomads coming to Porto, and Porto is becoming a cluster for tech companies. We have several investments in course for developing new residential areas. So Porto is growing and is becoming a real multicultural city. What I would like to share one interesting thing that is happening. You know that Porto is surrounded by other small cities. Like in the south, you have Gaia. In the north, you have Matosinhos. There are small cities. For instance, Gaia is in the other side of the river, so it's really close to Porto. And those three municipalities have joined together and created an entity that is called Greater Porto, that is now being promoted internationally to international investors. So it became a bigger territory. They are presenting the territory as a huge opportunity to invest, and the intention is to have until 2030 45,000 new houses. So and also they are capturing investment for the industry. You know that in North there's lots of industry, small and medium-sized companies spread along the north. So Porto has a proper dynamic, and it will be stronger economically. And nowadays we have lots of international people coming to Porto, wanting to invest, to live. And I can see in the future that this trend will keep growing and growing. And I see, for instance, I make a comparison that Porto in the some years longer will be like Barcelona in Spain. We'll have a real strong position in the country. And Porto was discovered later. International started to look for Algarve, then in Lisbon, now in Porto. The Porto is also now in spotlight, and also North it is, because in North there's lots of opportunities to invest with a value that is very competitive. So I think that all of this together brings lots of opportunities for investors and for people that want to come and live. So Porto has an Atlantic coast, very, very, very interesting, and I would say that they are the major areas of interest to invest. In the coastal Atlantic, you have the Foz do Douro, which is a premium neighborhood. That's where I live since I was born. And then you have for south and for the north, the coastline, which is now with new developments, and it's a strong investment being there, as well as on the River Douro. So there's lots of new investments along the city, still not enough to fill the gap that we have. So lots of things happening in Porto and lots of new opportunities, and for the next decades for sure.
And there's still the supply issue there as well that we have in other parts of the country. I mean, you've been involved in some major projects in Porto.
Yes.
Do you want to tell the audience just a short summary of what Living Porto does to help support people?
Yes. Living Porto is a boutique that wants to make the support 360 degrees support for from the beginning until the all the process of the buying or investing, and during the process and after the process as well, with property management, with the development support. We have partners for all the specialities, expert partners for each phase of the project or of the investment, and we can give support. I was involved in an investment that was for Porto and Lisbon, that was for 2,000 studios. It was a big project that we built up 2,000 studios. The project name was Smart Studios and was sold to Round Hill. So I was involved in all that process from the beginning. That's where I had a really deep knowledge in all the process of the real estate investment and management. And I can say now that in Porto, there's lots of opportunities to buy, to live, or for investment, to have good returns. And well, in Porto, then you have the north, which is different from the city, but where, for instance, you have lots of affordable small houses and ruins, stone houses, which is really unique in the north. And that's a kind of product that many foreigners love to have it and to live in it. So I would say that we have different kind of opportunities for different kind of needs or interests.
Okay, thank you.
Porto can give the support for any kind of investment or people that wants to buy it. We give that kind of support. We work on their behalf in that all the source and all the execution of the project.
Perfect. Thank you, Mario. And Anne, you obviously, I know you have offices in and around Lisbon and in the Algarve, but I know you do a lot in the north as well. Is there anything you wanted to add to what Mario was saying about, what the north offers be different to other regions?
Well, first of all, I think what João said is very true. We are seeing this trend of people going to the Algarve to live on a permanent basis, especially American residents. We saw a very large increase in the number of Americans and Canadians looking in that area. Lisbon regions are also still showing really strong growth. That's mostly, I think, being driven by international investment. And the Lisbon metropolitan and southern regions still remain the biggest players in the Portuguese real estate market. They account for, I believe, 40% of all real estate sales. That said, the northern and central regions have had a really significant increase in transaction values, and Porto is, I think, at the forefront of that movement. The North was runner-up in the numbers of transactions represented in Portugal, with 30% of total volume sales in 2023. And last but not least, let's remember the Alentejo area, because that region saw the most significant price increase, mostly because of high values of the Comporta, Troia, Miligi's new Golden Triangle, with record-breaking prices per square meter in Portugal. And there's so much international attention on the VIPs that are being attracted to this area that I think that is really spurring high net worth investments throughout that whole region.
Yeah, and we're seeing the same in our stats. You know, I'd say 22% of people come from America. Britain is still strong. We still get 15 to 20% of the inquiries coming to Portugal come from there, but also Northern Europe, South Africa, Canada, and now the Nordic countries as well are coming into the fore, as well as Asia. And do you want to talk a little bit more about some of those areas around Lisbon? Places like Cascais and what you're seeing there.
Well, the Cascais region continues to be extremely strong. There's a dramatic shortage of properties in this area, but there's a lot of new construction slated for the last quarter, 24, 25, and 26. Lots of really interesting new developments going on. In the greater metropolitan area of Lisbon, it is, of course, the fastest growing area per capita in the country, and prices are going up accordingly. But we are also seeing a big difference in the quality of construction, in sustainable building, smart homes, and really world-class amenities, with a focus on this new luxury building being on comfort and quality of living. On the south side of the 25th of April bridge, which connects the municipality of Almada to Lisbon, it's an area with a really fast-growing property value, mostly because of the prime location and a good alternative to Lisbon's much more expensive housing. There's a big demand for vacation homes and retirement communities in Portugal, and a lot of families are moving and bringing in commerce with them, international schools, sophisticated dining options, great tourism options, and a lot of outdoor sports activities. Sesimbra is another region that's growing fast because of its proximity to Lisbon. It has lower prices and quality lifestyle options in the middle of nature and with beautiful, stunning beaches. There are some really fabulous new developments that we have that are breaking ground this year and in 2025 that are going to be focused on things like wellness, longevity, healthy lifestyle. And then there's Palmela region, which is slightly more inland and is only 25 minutes from Lisbon. And it's got historical appeal, and it's strategically located near highways that connect throughout Portugal. And the town has its own wine production, historical sites. It's very laid back, and it's attracting a lot of retirees and families that are just looking for bigger and more affordable housing options compared to what they can find in Lisbon.
Yeah. And Mario, in terms of going up, obviously between Porto in the north and Lisbon and surrounding area, we've got the Silver Coast, which is less of a mature real estate market, but it's on the up, isn't it, as well?
Well, I can speak from Portland, and also what I see is that the Porto was in the north was discovered more recently. So I think that the prices are more affordable at this stage. And well, the north is different, and I would highlight 2 or 3 things that I think it's really remarkable. The water. The north has plenty of water, which nowadays is very important resource and for the future. So the north is very green and lots of rivers and waterfalls. So I think in lots of properties that has water in the land. So I think that's a characteristic that really is important. And the kind of houses that is the granite stone, which is very typical in the north. And well, in the north, you have plenty of villages split in the region. So you can live really in the countryside, and at the same time, you can have a village nearby where you can have a nice dinner, where you have the schools and hospitals and everything you need, all the amenities that you need. And you have excellent motorways, and to go to be like in 40 minutes in Porto, and to go Porto during the week and have a fine dinner, or to assist a music concert and then return to your country house. So you can have a lifestyle here, a balance between the city amenities and at the same time live in the countryside. So I think it is a unique, and now it's still very affordable, and so there's lots of good opportunities for investment. And I can see in the future that it will grow and namely Americans, they have discovered the north of Europe as well, have discovered the north, and they are really looking to come, and they will invest. And I can imagine that in the future some resorts for living will be implemented in the north.
Okay, thank you, Mario. I'd like to switch tacks a little bit now. Obviously, we've talked a bit about the north. We talked about Lisbon and surrounding areas. I'd like to move to the Algarve region and discuss the real estate market there, starting with João, with your expertise in the luxury bespoke developments. What is the different and unique about properties and where that developments are in say the Algarve's Golden Triangle, and especially around places like Quinta Largo and the Quinta Largo estate?
So listen, let's try to be practical in terms of advising our audience here. Just to give you an example, I never sold a house in Quinta Largo to a Portuguese family. This is how international the region is, right? You have more direct flights from here to the UK and Ireland than you can get from Lisbon, the capital city. You have more Michelin star restaurants in the Algarve than you have on the rest of the country combined. So that shows that there is wealth within the region. But it's understated, it's low key, it's laid back. We have 600 hectares in Quinta Largo. We can only have maximum 2,000 units, right? So it's very low density. Someone was asking here on the chat, how does it perform in terms of safety? Let me give you a personal example. Since I moved to Quinta do Lago, I never locked my car again. It's impossible for me to be robbed in Quinta do Lago. It's a gated community, right? I just drop my car wherever I like. I go to the paddle courts. I go to the golf courses. It doesn't matter. It's a different way of living. Again, you want to commute, you take a flight, you go back to the UK immediately. So again, it's still cheap and affordable compared to Marbella. It's still cheap and affordable compared to Sardinia because the market is building up and it's very well established. Quinta do Lago is 52 years old. So you're not buying into a new destination and then you need to figure out how to find an hospital and a school and a supermarket and this and that. Everything is already here. Everything was already tested. This is very much an international destination per se, although with a Portuguese flavor, with a Portuguese culture, food, traditions. But the first language of the resort is English. So if you pick up the phone, chances are that the person on the other side of the line can only speak English. Investment-wise, I don't like the argument about supply and demand. When you're playing with supply and demand, you might find yourself in a situation in which demand fades away, and then you're stuck with an asset that you don't like. I think that is more to say that you are buying unique assets, sea view, beachfront, by the golf course at a really affordable price. So irrespective of the moment in time, in terms of the market, it's always a good investment because you're buying into a very well-known destination. I think that there is also this joke about location, and then if you don't have the perfect location, just put some money on the table. Listen, this is the best location in the country, full stop. I'm from Lisbon originally. I lived in Cascais for many, many years. I like the Atlantic coast. I like playing golf with a lot of wind. But Quinta do Lago it's a different ballgame. You know, it's nothing compared to the rest of the country. That being said, there is still money to be made on different layers, be it as a developer, and we are happy with our returns. As an investor, if you buy to rent, someone was asking, how is it in terms of rental? So in our case, it's lock and live. It's a fully serviced gated communities, from daily cleaning to maintenance to security, access to the golf courses. Everything is taken care for you. So if you buy low, chances are that you will sell high, right? So I think that on that, we cover the triangles. It's affordable per se, it's established, you can rent them out, and obviously due to the growing process of prices in Europe in general, I think that this is always a safe investment. Again, just to summarize, we never sold a house to a Portuguese family in Quinta do Lago. That shows how much this is internationally driven. So you're not exposed to the Portuguese government or to the Portuguese macroeconomic dynamics or to the Portuguese law and regulation. You're buying into, I don't like to sound shallow, but you're buying into European risk rather than buying into Portuguese risk in Quinta do Lago.
Thank you, Chal. But obviously you've been involved in the luxury exclusive end of the market in the Algarve. Perhaps you could talk about sort of mid and west Algarve and just give your view on the Algarve and how it's evolved and where it's going.
Yeah, it tags along a little bit along basically what the panel has said, that we see also shifts from people moving from, for example, the wealthier Golden Triangle area where traditionally the higher priced properties were at, further to the west. If you look at the international schools, for example, there's a big one in Portuguese. They've also opened up a couple of years ago a German school and now a Dutch school. So that whole area is getting a massive boost of, again, international expats looking for safety, looking for a place to have the kids at school. And again, like João mentioned, you're 35 minutes from the airport. So again, connectivity. I think another point is, I saw that also in the comments, cost of living. I mean, we have fantastic Michelin star restaurants where you can spend a couple of €100 on a lunch, or you can go to a local restaurant where you can still get your fish of the day for, say, €12, and anything in between. And I think the mix is also very interesting and nice that it still exists, the traditional Portugal. What we have seen mainly in the West is people wanting to move out of resorts. Again, pricing perhaps. Availability is a problem. If you look for a villa, say €2 million in Vila Moura for a new villa, you're not going to find much. So we've seen a move in the budget, say between 1.5 to 4 or 5 million, also to further west in Carvoeiro and in Lagos. If you look at Lagos, they have a lot of building land, and that's been a massive boom in the last, probably the last 10 years. Praia da Luz and even Burgal. And there now you would have new built properties. Everything is in contemporary style versus 15 years ago, the Mediterranean style, but that's what's fashionable. You can get a very nice new built villa with sea views, say 2.5 to 3.5 million. And that's basically what we've been selling in the last couple of years. The biggest problem, again, being lack of options. So there's a lot of off-plan properties being built at the moment. Most people, they want something ready to move into, and it's a little bit the struggle we sometimes have, but that's the market situation. And I agree with the panel. We've seen people moving throughout the country basically for different reasons. We've seen a shift also with higher budget clients moving from more central Algarve to west. A lot of the oceanfront properties, the special properties we've sold, you're looking in the 5 to 10 million euro brackets nowadays, even for an old renovation house, oceanfront. So we've seen big ticket items being sold in the last couple of years, which if you would have asked 5 years ago, we would have said that's virtually impossible, because those type of prices was basically only in Valdelobo, Quinta do Lago. So interesting to see.
Yeah, and I'd just like to open it up to all the panel, really. You know, we talked, Giselle touched on location, and we've heard that, you know, many times. But what other factors are coming into play? You know, amenities, personalization, that all have an impact, you know, whether it's for an investment or whether it's for, you know, you just wanting to feel good that the home you bought, you know, is gaining value, and how is that spinning off into other neighboring locations? I'd just be interested to hear from the panel. Anne, would you like to start with that one?
Well, I think that especially applies to the Silver Coast of Portugal. We briefly touched on it before. The Silver Coast goes all the way from the north of Lisbon up to Porto, and it's becoming a real hotspot for the real estate market, especially for foreign investors and expats. The landscape along that coastline kind of reminds me a little bit of the California coastline, and it's full of traditional Portuguese villages, and it just lends itself to a much slower pace of life compared to major cities like Lisbon and Porto. And we are seeing a lot of Americans, a lot of Canadians, even Brazilians moving up to that area. And the region has a lot of sports activities like surfing, golfing, hiking. There are towns like Óbidos and Alcobaça that have their own medieval castles and historic monasteries. And it's a region with just a lot of cultural appeal. And property prices on the Silver Coast are generally lower compared to more established areas like the Algarve and Lisbon. And this affordability, I think, really makes the Silver Coast an appealing option for buyers that are looking to stretch their budget a little bit further while still enjoying a very high quality of life.
Thank you, Anne. It's good. I think we'd had a few questions in about the Silver Coast, so that was really good context. Mario, anything you want to add to what I was saying about the, you know, other than location, you know, what are you seeing in terms of the demands of the investors and the buyers?
The demand is growing, and I would extend what Anne said from Porto to the north, to Spain, the Atlantic coast. It's plenty of beaches and extant motorways and connections to the international airport and to Porto. And so you have there all that you need to have a very good lifestyle. You can have that. You have conditions, you have safety, you have restaurants, you have everything for what you need, and prices that are very competitive, and that will grow in the future for sure. So it will be a very good investment, and it is a very good option to live for people that I think that people that is looking for the north is different from people that are looking for the south. It's different kind of lifestyle. It's more like a countryside. We have the beaches, okay, but we have the countryside and the mountains and the rivers. So you have plenty of activities to do there. So I think it's different markets, but the opportunity is there. You know, the north of Portugal is still the south of Europe. And so we see lots of people from the north coming down to the south and looking to Porto. They started to discover Porto with the tourism, and then Porto has lots of international awards, and there people come more and more and rented cars and went themselves to discover the country, and they went to Douro Valley, for instance, which is scenic.
Beautiful place.
Minho, so they discovered that regions. There are wine regions with lots of sellers to visit, lots of culture, lots of tradition, lots of very traditional people, authentic Portuguese way of living, and the places where there is life, people live there and have their lives there. So it's not you don't find there a massive tourism. So it's quite a kind of thing that some kind of people really appreciate to be more near the nature and the small villages, and near a bigger city for the city life if they want, if they need. So it is a balance of some kind of lifestyle that fills many needs that people are looking for.
Thank you, Mario. Bart, I'd like to, obviously the Algarve, sunshine capital, 300 days of sunshine. We've already heard from João, right across Portugal. You've got the beautiful seafood, the sardines, the culture. They're all big pulls into Portugal. And once you've been there, even whether it's holiday or moving for a more long term, you start to realise that it still captures that unique nature of the country. What do you think? Really, the Algarve itself still has a lot of different things going on. It's not one fits all, is it?
Oh, definitely. I mean, East Algarve is very different than Central, and Central different than West. Even just climate-wise, it's different. Property-wise, it's different, and also the availability of properties is different. What we've seen over the last 12 months, we've seen a different type of buyer coming through the door. We've got a lot of younger people, late 30s, early 40s. Also tapping a little bit into the digital nomad scene. Fiber internet, for example, is one of the questions, because there's a lot of people moving here on a permanent basis, but they will still fly a week back to their home country to sit in their office back in Germany or in the UK or in Holland or wherever, and the rest of the time they work from home. So it's a little bit of a different client that we've seen. And I've seen, besides what the panel already mentioned, US, Canada, a lot of Dutch and Germans in the market. And then, of course, per area, I think what's also very important, if what people are looking for to buy in the Algarve, is it just purely lifestyle, or they're coming to live and work? Are they coming here on a permanent basis or semi-permanent basis? Is it private use, or they want to rent out? One of the funny things is, for example, which we haven't had for a while, there's a lot of people nowadays with very fancy sports cars. The garage question. We've actually lost sales because we couldn't get the sports car into the inclination of the ramp into the properties. Good problems to have, but those type of questions we didn't have, say, 4 or 5 years ago, especially in West, definitely in Central. So besides the areas in the Algarve, I think what's important to find out what exactly is the client looking for. If they've got kids, if it's an older couple looking for a social events to tap into your local, say, Rotary Club or tennis club or paddle, or we've got a lot of people with motorsports. There's the Autódromo do Algarve. There's a big racetrack here. And we try to basically find a solution for those people depending on not specifically the area, but the wish list of their search in combination with the budget, and to find basically property solutions throughout the Algarve.
Thank you, Bob. That's really helpful to hear that side of it. There's been some changes changes going on with planning in Portugal. I'm just interested to get from João, what's happening there, and if any of the other panel have got anything to add in terms of what's going on with the planning side of things.
So I think that the government made a leap of faith to try to simplify the planning process. I'm not one of those that complains that the local authorities are always mean to us. I think that we need to behave properly according to the laws. That will mean that, well, if now you don't have a sanction by the local authorities, you need to rely purely on the quality of the developers. So developers with an established track record, with strong teams, I think that they will benefit. Smaller developers, I think that they will struggle a bit. I would like to also to address a question that I saw here from the panel that I think it's really relevant, which is what's the impact that this let's say, wealthy migration is having to our country? Is it becoming something like a Disneyland and it's Portugal no longer here? No. I think that the blunt answer is no. Obviously, we are still Portuguese. There is no way that we can be more Portuguese than we already are. So we like Ronaldo, we scream and shout every time the national team plays. It gave us a chance to move from having noble Pulitzer-Prize architects working abroad to have them working in Portugal. It gave the chance to our engineers to outperform the ones in England and France and other locations, because we have a very strong engineering school. It gave our lawyers the chance to work on an international landscape. It gave our families the chance to sell at a premium the properties that they got from their parents and grandparents. So it's doing great for the country, and I think that it's something that we are always we have been always welcome to foreigners. 20% of our GDP comes from tourism, so we were used to seeing foreigners. Going back to customization, Paula, and I swear to God that I will not take more time than the one needed. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. We moved from designing like in the 80s. It was like we need to build 200,000 units because we need to deliver houses to people, irrespective. Then we went to the European Union and we had to build houses that had water, energy, sewage, and everything there. Today, we can work with our clientele without losing the character of Portugal. I think that no one is coming here to buy. I love Dubai, but no one likes to come here and buy a Middle Eastern house. They want to buy a Portuguese house. But then every client is different. If you're catering to the British clientele, you need to have their cinema rooms for them to watch their football matches. You need to have their wine cellars if they're into wine. If you're catering more to the Swiss clientele, you need to have their vaults for their watches. So it's great fun, and it has become a cool melting pot. Portugal started with the sea discoveries and everything, and now we are welcoming people back to our country, and we are super excited with that. Again, affordable luxury. We have low density, so you're not buying into a crazy Disneyland of real estate developments. Quality of building, I think it's one of the best. I've worked in several countries. I started my career in Eastern Europe. I was covering Czech Republic, Hungary, and Montenegro at the time. So apples with apples, Portugal, it's unbeatable in terms of quality of construction. And listen, I think, you know Portugal well. Those that took the chance to come to Portugal, they will never fly back, because this is a truly unique community to be part of.
Well, I think Anne's
sorry.
Anne's a testament of that. She landed in the country and never left. Is that right, Anne?
That's very true. And I would just like to add to what João was saying, that I see developments becoming much more sustainable, more technologically advanced, and with much more refined product, with a big increase in amenities offered within these incredible complexes. There's an emphasis on quality of living that wasn't there before, which is really attractive to foreigners moving over and looking for a kind of a no hassle transition.
Bard, sorry, I cut across you.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to tag along on João's basically comment and the chat, the affordability of properties. The funny thing here is, if you drive 10 minutes away from the coast, inland, say from the Côte d'Azur to Provence, what you have in France, completely different prices. So if people are looking for lower price properties and affordability, I think we still have properties on offer.
Paul, allow me to step in. So, Bart, let's compare apples with apples, right? So, from here to Zagaleta, the prices in Quinta do Lago are 1/3 of Zagaleta, right? And it's the same sea, the same seafood, quasi the same language, just a better football.
Much better,
spot, right? So it's affordable, man. It's affordable. Like it or not, it's affordable. I just flew in from Rome. Italy's outrageous, right? The prices that they will charge you for a Mickey Mouse flat compared to what you can get in Portugal, it's outrageous. So, with a small ticket, you'll get true luxury. While in the rest of Europe, it's unless you're like uberly rich and you can spend as much money as you like.
Agree.
Totally agree with that. I mean, Spain, even for what you get for the value compared with Portugal, and you still keep that realness Portugal, which is, I think, what they've done so well. Mario, anything you want to add to that?
Well, I just agree with what has been said, and I'd like to reinforce the quality of construction, and I have been involved in construction of buildings and the regulatory. Now we have an excellent school of engineers. It's traditional, and the regulatory is very deep. So the quality is really, it's not comparable with other countries. So I think that's a net value and as João said, it's good that now that engineers can work in Portugal rather than going outside and working for other countries. So I think that will improve our stock with great quality.
Right, okay, so one of the questions, I want to start moving to the chat question. One of the questions is, I guess none here are considering the impact arrival of expats, or shall we say the rich migrants, or I think, you know, the more diverse your population, wherever you are, you see better things come from it. If you end up with a community that's all one set, you're never going to have the richness in your culture. And I have to say, you know, that plays out in all the stats. You know, the safety, which was talked about earlier, is, you know, João was saying he can leave his car open. Portugal is one of the safest places. It's one of the happiest places, and that is because the whole package. It's not one thing or another. It's a combination of many different factors, and I think, you know, that's what people should hold on to rather than look for, you know, issues that, you know, there are issues in everything, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of you know, a lot of diversity in what's happened, and I think that will continue beyond, you know, the next few years. I mean, I've got another question here, which I think is aimed at what kind of developments are out there. Maybe, Anne, you can pick this one up, one of the questions in the chat, to do with retirement living, you know, life plan living, and in the luxury end. I mean, we've seen it a lot in America. We've seen it coming into the UK. You know, how is that? What's on offer there? And perhaps you could pick that one up.
You know, that's a really interesting dynamic in this market. There are so many great developments that are coming into the market over the next 2 or 3 years, focused on the retirement community. But by retirement, we're seeing people coming in their early 50s and up. And these options include seafront and city center apartments, single family, single story bungalows, 3-bedroom villas. And the properties are designed to really accommodate anything and everything that the client would need in terms of comfort. They even have pet clinics and pet services. And they're located on golf courses, nature preserves, on the beach, the mountains. We have an amazing property that's in the middle of a typical Portuguese village, and the services that are included for everything from independent living to full memory care is a fraction of what you would pay in the US, Canada, or even other EU countries. The projects also that we see going up for multi-generational properties are really dynamic communities focused on healthy lifestyle and wellness and longevity. And some of them are designed by world-class architects. This subject is definitely a one-on-one conversation to discover what's going to best suit the buyer's lifestyle and what they will be happy to look at, and what location will best suit them, and what their budget is, because there's a big variety.
Thank you, Anne. And just, I see the chat is lighting up a bit. So obviously we've only got another 5-6 minutes. We don't want to go too far over the hour. So we're going to take another 4 or 5 questions for the chat. But any questions that don't get answered, don't worry. We will be in the next 24, 48 hours coming back to everybody. And if anybody would like to have a discovery call with any of the partners or their organizations in the next week or so, we can arrange that, or you can come to Portugal Pathways and they can arrange that for you. I see we've got a question in: what other associated costs when buying a property in Portugal are there that they need to consider, and how does it work in addition to the actual price of the property? What's the process, and what do people need to prepare for the first time? I don't know if Bob, you want to take that one?
Sure. You've got the IMT, which is the purchase tax, and that's on a sliding scale. So that goes per bracket. Basically, above I think at the moment it's 1.1 million. You have a fixed fee of 7.5% on IMT. Below that, it's a variation in between about 4.5% to 6%. On top of that, you have stamp duty, which is 0.8%. Then what in the Northern European countries, the notaries do in terms of work in France and Belgium and in Holland, that is basically the job for the lawyers. So the due diligence of the property, if the property is company held, also do due diligence on the company. Lawyers, depending on your property purchase price and depending on where you are in the country, generally they charge somewhere between 0.5% up to 1%, some 1.5%. And then you're going to have your notary fees. Perhaps if you have financing, some documents might be needed to translate it for the bank. So you have another a couple of €1,000 on cost of that. So if you would be in the market, say above 1.1 million, you're on the low side of just say 10% on your purchase cost.
Right, thank you. And we've got a question in here from Miranda. I think sort of touched on what João was talking about earlier about cost of living and affordability with the equivalents of the south of France, Spain, US alike. How much of an impact is that? Because I assume it's quite significant, especially with what's happened with inflation around the world in recent years. João, do you want to follow on from what you were saying earlier?
So listen, I'm not a macroeconomic expert, but one of our claims during this hyperinflation period was that indeed, if you want to hedge and protect yourselves against inflation, it's to come and live with the same living standard but paying less, right? So apples with apples. Listen, a restaurant bill in Portugal, it's 1/10 of what you pay in London nowadays. The school fees are 1/10 of what you pay in London nowadays. Your maid will cost you 1/3 of what it costs you. So overall, you'll save money while having, I would say, the same, if not better quality of living. So it's not only on the house per se, but it's what you have as your personal running costs. So your golf membership fees per year, they are 1/10 of what you pay in England, right? So listen, we are all a little bit biased because we're trying to promote ourselves or sell our products or whatever. Let me just tell you that I spent 10 years abroad doing investment banking. So I think that people did not move to Portugal because of sardines and fado. They moved because they were not paying taxes for a while. They realized that the country is unbeatable. So today it became a road-tested destination. So I remember the day that the Prime Minister said no more tax benefits for anyone, and we all cried. And the morning after, we kept selling because people are more willing to have quality of life than to go into dodgy schemes to get tax benefits or whatever. So happy to be in Portugal, happy to be back in Portugal. So I'm part of that generation that had to flew in 2008 with the great financial crisis. Happy to be back home 10 years later and do what I like to do, which is to build buildings, to build developments, to think with my clients the best way forward, work with my architects and my engineers. And and super excited to work with such a sophisticated clientele that comes from the UK, Ireland, US, Brazil. It's truly exciting, and again, I think that we are doing a good job to build the brand, to sustain the brand, to look after the Portuguese brand.
Thank you, Joe. Mario, obviously, that cost of living question in the north. Do you want to just touch on that before we move on from that?
Well, in the north, it's even more affordable. It obviously is different from Quinta do Lago. It's a different concept, but for the lifestyle that you look, if it is matches with what you are looking for in the north, well, then you can have, for instance, in the north, if you go to a restaurant in Braga, you can have an excellent dinner for 15 euros. For instance, and you are really having a great meal. So you can really have an affordable life in the daily life living in the north. Even for people that are living in Porto, if they are going to live in the countryside, they can feel the difference between the Porto and the north. So in the countryside. So. But I think people.
I see we're getting quite a few questions in about how do you get support for finding the builder and the gardener and how do you deal with that? I mean, Barden, and you must get that question a lot from expats coming to the country. How am I going to maintain? And I'm sure, João, you get the same.
Yeah, I can.
Well, as an expat myself,
you go.
João, do you want to go, or you want me to get this one?
Yeah, go ahead. So just a quick note. I think that the key selling point in terms of services is that everyone is fluent in English. So irrespective, if you land in China, you'll find yourself in an awkward situation. You want to find a gardener, but the guy cannot reply to you. So after that, well, it's you can give your own take on this, but I think it's not a deal-breaking situation.
Bartman?
Oh, well, when I first moved here, hello? When I first moved here, as an expat myself, I thought I spoke Portuguese, but I learned my Portuguese in Brazil. And I found out that there is a big difference between the accent between the Brazilian Portuguese and the Portuguese in this country. So I know sort of the trials and tribulations that an expat goes to when they're moving to a new country and they don't speak that language. Most of the agents in my company are multinationals, and we've all been through this process. And with these experiences kind of top of mind, we've created an infrastructure of partners that we work with that are trusted and tried and true, and that will not waste your time or money, because I went through that myself, and that was a bit of a traumatic situation when moving over here. So we really try to protect our clients by building up this referral network where we partner with immigration and relocation services, lawyers, cross-border tax specialists, wealth management companies, as well as things like personal trainers, housekeepers, international schools, and pretty much everything.
You understand? Bart, anything you want to add to that? Or
no, just one tip. I mean, if you're buying a property, ask the owners, ask the vendors if they're happy with their team, because if they've been living at the property, probably they will have perhaps changed companies around for pool maintenance or garden maintenance or maids or what have you. If they're happy with it, see if you can take them over. We sometimes sell properties with the whole team, including the personal assistant. Just a little tip: if they're happy with the team who is doing the maintenance, pick up the contacts.
Yeah, I see there's been a few questions in about water supply from the north to the south. I mean, it's an ongoing question, that's happening in lots of different parts of the world, including California, and Portugal is no different. Does anyone want to discuss the supply of water and how the country is likely to deal with that in the long term?
Yes, Ron.
No, listen, so from a developer's perspective, because we have to deal with that in the local authorities daily. The issue about, well, first and foremost, obviously the north, it's very rich in water. The Douro Valley, it's just unbeatable. Well, and you see that on the wines, right? So there is nothing to be said on that. Algarve-wise, Algarve moved from a population of 400,000 people to 500,000 people between COVID and now. So we have more domestic consumption, more public consumption, but the infrastructures were not ready for that. And so we never had one day of scarcity of water, but we had the authorities worried and planning ahead of time to make sure that we can accommodate this new demand that is coming. That is being dealt with various solutions. Just to say that there is a big dam in the center of the country where the daily security control discharge, it's enough to supply the entire Algarve. So for them, it's just to put a pipe, bring the water in, and we are safe. Obviously, as a developer, we pay a lot of attention to water consumption for two reasons. And again, I try to be always accurate to my principles and values. First and foremost, because we want to keep our costs controlled. B, because we know that if it's not sustainable now, it won't be future-proof. And to be future-proof, it's not just about waving ESG slogans, is to make sure that everything that you build will sustain legally and technologically in the future. And it's not, and in real estate future, it's 50 years down the line. So our gardens, they try to be as sustainable as possible. Our landscape designer is Paul Cracknell, became quite famous after the Burj Khalifa, Dubai Mall, the Museum of the Future in Dubai. He designed Canary Wharf. We have solar panels. We have brown water. So we spend a lot of time on that because we feel that it's on our clients' best interest to have a sustainable product, not because we want to put a slogan saying one green way, it's green. It's green per se. It's green jacket, one green way at Quintalag by the 12th green of the North Course. But the backbone of our intervention is to make sure that our houses, they are sustainable within 50 years, and that's why we spend some time and money to make sure that we reach that objective.
Bob, would you like to add to that? I'm going to then get everyone to summarize in a second.
Yeah, it's from the last couple of years already, actually, before even there was water shortage. What we've seen after the last financial crisis, more interestingly, is a lot of big gardens were reduced because of water costs and maintenance costs. And it's something we see basically happening again now. It's exactly what Jerome says in new developments, whereby they look at perhaps reducing lawns because they use a lot of water and using more sustainable local plants who can basically get through the summer without too much water, let's put it that way. So we see things changing, and it's good. It's good.
And I noticed we'd had a couple of questions about Comporta. I'll have to come back to everybody because we're up well over the hour now, and I just would like to thank our panel. But before we close, I'd like perhaps if the panel could just share one piece of insight. If you were talking to an investor coming into Portugal, or you're talking to a buyer that's looking at a different region or marketplace, what's the one takeaway, the one bit of advice that you'd want to leave them with? Mario, could we start with you?
Well, I would say that the Porto and North region is now in the early stage of development. And we know that the new developments are really much more sustainable. So we didn't have the massive investment, massive tourism, which is an advantage. We are in a region with plenty of water and with affordable prices at the moment and lots of very good opportunities. So with the greater Porto entity that is now being promoted to international investors, the trend of the growth is very high, and the opportunities to invest is very strong.
Thank you. Bob?
Just look up one word, and that's a typical Portuguese word, saudade. And that's something when you leave Portugal, that's Tip of the day. No, it's a fantastic country to live. It's a fantastic country to work. Climate-wise, we call it 8 months summer and 4 months winter, which is spring and the rest of the year. It's safe. It's relaxed, and it's a good time to invest at the moment in Portugal in general.
Definitely. João?
So listen, Portugal has been around for the past 1,000 years or so. So the only thing that changed was the quality of our clients, and it's a road-tested destination. Come and see it. Come for the weekend. Stay for your life.
Anne did that. Yeah, go for it, Anne.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I'm laughing because that was so true to my case. But I think my one piece of advice based on my own experience is that I cannot overemphasize the importance of working with a trusted advisor in this market. Buying property in Portugal can be challenging, and it is key to the success of your investment and your peace of mind that you work with a qualified, transparent, trustworthy agency or individual that's representing you.
Thank you, Anne. And I'd like to thank our panel, obviously on behalf of Portugal Pathways and the audience. We've had a highly engaged audience, I can tell by the chat, and we will get back to everybody. But I'd like to thank everybody, and and I think what Anne said at the end there, we have good partners and trusted partners, and Portugal Pathways spend a lot of time and effort making sure we bring people that can bring value to people's lives in whatever part that is, and it's property and real estate today. Our next webinar is on the 11th of June and talks about the difference between the old NHR tax regime that's coming to an end to new entrants this year, if you haven't got the grandfathering, and how that might compare with the future. But I'd also like to reaffirm, as a lot of the panel said, you can have all of the great incentives in terms of tax and all the rest of it, but nothing can compare with the 300 days of sunshine, the culture, the sardines, and the beautiful people that create this safe environment haven that is making it a beacon for many families all around the world. So thank you very much for your attendance, and we hope to see you on one of our webinars again soon. Thank you.